Okay, this is the third video on the DHCP, and really what we're going to talk about is just the virtual machine aspect of it, and it is a little bit complicated when you do it this way, but what we have is everybody here is connected onto a virtual network. There's no physical devices here. Now, somewhere over here, we have our host computer that, this is all taking place on an actual machine. Everything else is just software. So the way you set this up with these machines is you can have different types of network switches and whatnot. Now, a bridge switch is one where you can go directly from any of the devices into your host computer, so they can access the host computer. They can also, the second type here is called a NAT, and this is with the network address translator, and we will set up that type interface in a minute. And what happens there is all of these computers will be talking into our server, which will act as a router, and then on the out we're going to put another network card, and it'll be a NAT card, so it can take all these internal private addresses and convert them into an address to send to our host computer, and the host computer, through its resources and its actual physical network interface card, can interface to the internet and other places through its resources. So we will do that, but what we have right now is we have this host-only network, and this is where all these computers are just connected internally to themselves and nothing else on the outside world. They do connect through a virtual interface to the network hosts, so they can know those resources, but they don't have any connection right now to the outside world. And on these connections, they all have these virtual network, and this one for the bridge is 0, for the NAT is 8, and what we use is number 1. Now, a couple other things that we have in here, and those are virtual network adapters. They also have a virtual DHCP server, and when you're setting up the DHCP server with the 2008 machine, you have to disable this server, otherwise this server will try to supersede or interfere with your DHCP that you're trying to set up on the 2008 machine. So what we have right now is the host-only network, so it's completely contained within the host system. What we're going to do is we're going to put in NAT networking, and that way our server will have a net translator that goes from the private network to our host computer system, and then we'll be able to communicate with the outside world. Now, if we look at what we have to set up here, on all of these machines that we set up for the virtual machines, we can go down to settings, and in the settings it can talk about what type of network adapter we have. And so for all our network adapters right now, we're doing the host only. So you can have host only, you can have NAT, or you can have custom, or you can have the bridge, and that's where each individual machine directly connects to the host computer. So right now we're in NAT, and that's one of the things that you have to set up. Now, another thing that you have to set up is you have to set up the network editor, and we're going to need administrative privileges to look at this. But what you have to do is, here is where you have your configurations for bridge, the NAT, and host only. Now, you can also have it set up where DHCP is enabled on these devices. And now, for what we have, is we want to make sure that this DHCP is not enabled, because when we turned off, in example number 2, or video number 2, when we turned off our DHCP at our server, at the 2008 server, if this was enabled, we would have gotten this address as a backup from the virtual DHCP server rather than going to the private address that is supplied by the Microsoft system. So you have to make sure that's off. Now, the other thing that you have to be careful of when you're trying to set this up, and when you're trying to make things work, I used a lot of pings just to make sure we have connectivity. And these, especially this Windows 8 machine, it's set up so that it does not allow the ping system to make that connectivity. And what you have to do is go in, and apparently we haven't been using our system, so it has logged itself off. But you have to make sure that the pings are going to be enabled throughout the system so you can go out and communicate with each other. And a lot of times what happens in systems is they turn off the ping so that it's for a safety, for firewall precautions. And so what we need to do is we need to get into the control panel, not the command prompt. And at the control panel, we go into System and Security. And then what we want to go is into the Windows Firewall. And now our firewall is turned on, but some of these settings allow things through or not through. And by default, some of the elements that we want through for ping do not automatically go through. So we have to set it up so that we can allow that. And we can go in here, and some of the particular thing that we need is we need inbound and outbound. So things that we want to allow through our firewall, specifically for the ping, it's underneath file and printer serving or sharing, which it's not obvious that it would be, but it's called the echo request, and that's what ping is. It's kind of, we send out a command and then we get a response, and it's called the ICMP, and it's the Internet Control Message Protocol, and it's v4 because that's what we're working with. So you have to make sure that both of these are allowed, and you can highlight them, and you can disable the rule. If it's enabled, it goes to disable. If it's not enabled, then it'll allow you to enable it. And then you also need to go to the outbound rules, and the same thing for file and printer sharing is you have to go in and make sure that the echo requests, which are pings, are allowed through the firewall. So if you take care of all those things, you should be able to operate with your virtual network. And that is the end of the third demo.